Here's another simple song I wrote for you to hear. Maybe you might see me play if you've got some time to spare. It goes E, it goes B, to A I like simplicity. The truth be told, I probably stole the melody.
I moved to London about 3 years ago. I moved there when I was 26. I turned 28 recently. And it always, yeah, someone just said what? It always surprises people when I tell them my age. Everyone always thinks I'm much older than I actually. Don't nod. I'm not. It's, and I get it. You know, I don't think I've aged that terribly. But I do understand. Like, I don't exactly have the energy of someone that's still in their 20s. You know, I have the vibe of a man that's, say, going through his second divorce. Every time I hope that doesn't get a laugh, and it upsets me. I feel like if I auditioned for a film about a 28-year-old drug addict, they wouldn't give me the part of the addict. They would make me their sponsor. I'd be that weird old guy that just got out of jail and takes them for pancakes at 2 a.m. saying weird shit like, listen kid, let me tell you about real life. You ever suck dick for toothpaste? You suck the dick and then you need the toothpaste. That's capitalism. That's how they get you. That's the part that I feel I would embody. I think it's partly an immigrant thing. You know, I'm from Sri Lanka and I moved here, and I think immigrants as a population do just age a little bit faster than everyone else. It's a part of the deal of coming out of the womb in a developing country when you're just like, where am I? Let's get this over with. And then you just age in dog years after that. I feel like your childhood properly ends when you start worrying about the future. And in a developing country, that shit hits you real quick. 8 years old is too young to be looking at the immigration office website, trying to see which professions sponsor visas. That's no way to live as a kid. Because, you know, that's what I did, and now I do this, but I also have a day job as a software engineer, because fucking, of course, I do. You're the racist. That's the biggest laugh so far. You know, people ask me if I like my job, and you know, I don't dislike my job. I do, however, love my visa, and they don't sponsor visas for following your dreams. That's not how it works. There's a stereotype about, you know, people from my part of the world, that everyone from South Asia are just doctors and lawyers and engineers, and that's just not true. You know, we are just the only ones of us that they let into this part of the world. We have underachievers too. They just have to stay at home where they belong, I guess. I don't believe that entirely. I worry that I'm too cynical of a person. I feel like I can't enjoy things properly. Like, I went on a holiday to France at some point last year, and I just fucking hated it so much. It wasn't all bad, you know, like the food was all right, the buildings were pretty. It was the people that were the problem. France is such a beautiful place if the French would just take a hike. And if I'm being completely honest, it's not that I dislike French people. I want to be clear. If anything, I'm jealous of French people. I'm jealous of how, you know, confident they are, you know, as a culture. You know, as French people are often both confident about themselves as a person and confident about their country, and that is too much of a good thing. I lived in Germany for a little while, I lived in the UK, and both of those places are similar in that if you meet a British or German person that loves their country, they fucking hate themselves, rightfully so, as it should be. And I respect that, I really do. Like with France, I've never been to a place that believes its own hype so strongly. This is the Kanye West of countries. It's unbelievable. I swear, the French people think that they're the best whites, and I could not disagree more. I mean, they're not even in my top 5, really. Most of my favorites are the ex-USSR, Eastern European countries. No, genuinely, because, you know, y'all are white, but you're off-white. You know, like, you look like you should be having a good time, but you have plenty of reasons not to be. My number one favorite white people, though, especially since moving to the UK, are Irish people. Genuinely, because as a Sri Lankan, I feel a very strong kinship with Irish people, because everything the British did to us, they tested out on them first. So it's not a color thing, it's the sadness that brings us together. Particularly if you are red-headed and Irish, because, man, that's a hard life. That's a lot to deal with. You got a lot going on. You have the British fucking with you. You have the sun fucking with you. That's one of the few advantages of this situation. I don't know how much sunscreen costs ever. But, you know, if you're red-headed and Irish, just to intellectually fathom that this single source of life for everything else on earth looks at you and your people like, nah, fuck you, skin cancer. Like, that's me. That's not, like, racism's a bitch, but melanoma kills. On sight it kills. I started smoking last year, and this is the only place where I get multiple woos for that. And I do love you for it. I really do. No, I know it's terrible for me, but it's a very calming, pleasing habit. I wouldn't recommend it, of course, if you say plan on living a long life. I just have no interest in this endeavor, really. It's not that I want to die anytime soon. You know, things are going all right. I'm having a nice time. I just don't want to live that long. I'm thinking 65. You know, like, retirement age should be retirement age. And I only want to live beyond that point if I can age like the Queen of England did before she died, Queen Elizabeth. I swear, I want to live this lady's exact life. I want to tour the Commonwealth. I want to dress like a pimp. And you show me a single picture of this lady in the last 2 decades, and tell me that's not a pimp that you see, okay? She had big hats and colorful robes. That is pimp attire. And she exhibited very pimpish behavior as well. Really think about what touring the Commonwealth is. Like, the Commonwealth is every country that her country fucked the shit out of for hundreds of years, made a support group, and this little old lady just visits every few years, like, yeah, remember who did this to you? Like, that's terrifying. That's gangster behavior. It's not to be trifled with. It's very strange with her, because I'm clearly against everything she represented and carried on. But at the same time, there was something very genuinely charming about that old lady. And that's precisely why I'm glad she's dead. Hear me out. Like, because I think that whatever charm or likability she had was the only thing holding the whole operation together. Because, say the new guy, King Charlie. King Charlie does not have pimp energy. This man has bitch energy, and it's over with him. And that brings me great comfort. It really does. I know, I really don't understand the logic of wanting to live that long, you know, especially considering that to live that long, you need to live your life a certain way starting now. I get delayed gratification where you make sacrifices in one part of your life so you can have nice things in other parts of your life. I don't understand why I should have less fun in the possibly most fun part of my life so that I can extend the least fun part of my life. What am I trying to stay alive so long for? My unborn grandchildren, so I can remind them of death every time they see me? I just don't understand the logic. You know, I feel like that's like terrorists that kill themselves in this life so they can have sex with virgins in the afterlife. Y'all know you can fuck here, right? Like that's an option that is available to you. You know what's easier to get than a detonator? A personality. Read a book. Be nice. It's not that serious. It's really, it's never that serious. I worry that I'm too cynical a person in general. I tend to be particularly cynical in relationships. I tend to treat new relationships the way the UK treats new prime ministers. In that, no matter how well it's going in the beginning, I'm always like, 3 months, tops. And at this point, I feel the need to just like, I'm not a particularly political person at all because I'm a fundamentally very selfish person. But the new prime minister that they do have right now, Mr. Rishi Sunak, he's trying to fuck with immigration laws, so now this shit is personal. It was weird with him because he's the UK's first South Asian prime minister, their first prime minister of color even at all. And when he became prime minister, there was a lot of news back home in like Sri Lanka and South Asia in general about what a great thing this was, that a South Asian person became prime minister of the UK. And so I took a hard look at this guy. And it's not that I'm trying to gatekeep my race or anything like that. But if I may speak for my people, we don't want him. We really don't want him. It's because this man is brown on a technicality, really. He's far more rich and posh and fancy than he is brown. And he hates new immigrants and he hates working class British people. And that just makes me more sad that there isn't more unity between new immigrants and working class British people. Because if we teamed up, we could take them. It's a perfect team. They know the culture, we know the language. It's ideal. Take your time. It's okay. And he's a weird one. He's like being particularly hard on immigration, and he's the child of immigrants. He's like doing a "I'm not like the other girls of immigrants," and he's being especially hard on immigrants that show up to the UK on boats. And that's very counterintuitive to me, because I feel like those are the people that you want in the UK the most. Because think about the mindset of someone that their first impression of your country is a British beach. And they think, yes, this is where I would like to set up a life. That's a lot of kindness that they're showing you. Their first step on your land is just pebbles digging into their feet. They're fleeing violence and they're being greeted by violence. This is terrifying. I'm not trying to say that the UK does not have a lot of beautiful nature. You know, they have lots of wonderful lakes. They do a great hill. But if we're being honest, let's admit their beach is not their finest work. And I've been. I was captured. I went on holiday with some British friends, and it was terrifying. It was because they say the scariest things. You know, we'll go up to the water, and they'll say things like, "No, just go get in." I know it hurts at first. But just take it. And it gets better eventually. Like, is this a holiday or an arranged marriage? What are we doing here? I want to go home. I realize in hindsight that I have a bad habit of attracting people with a severe clinical depression. Apparently I don't have a type, I have a diagnosis. And it's at least partly my fault. You know, I think, you know, I'm very calm and quiet most of the time. So I imagine someone that might be going through something themselves might see me and think, oh, this guy might be a safe bet. Nope. Listen, I'm the reason I don't trust other quiet people. Because I see them and I'm like, I know what you're doing. You are clearly hiding some shit. That's because with a loud asshole, at least you know what you're getting as soon as you meet them. With us, by the time you find out, it's too late. And my main thing that I was working on for a long time is I used to be a really angry person. I used to be a really angry kid, an angry young man. And when I tell people that I have a lot of anger inside, it confuses them because I'm aware that I have this sort of pseudo-spiritual leader energy about me. I look like, you know, people that do yoga in the park? I look like if there was a group of them and their teacher had not showed up yet. I could just walk up to them. And they would follow me wherever I go. Right? And that's how my cult would begin. And it's not that it's like, I genuinely do think of myself as a very calm, quiet person. But a lot of it is also practical, like I keep myself that way. Because looking like this, there's only so much I can lose my cool in public before people want to call the police. From an outside perspective, if I lose my cool, this shit goes from guru to terrorist very quickly. And I get angry in weird ways as well. Like, you know, when I was a kid, when my dad got angry, he'd get very loud and very violent, and that scared the shit out of me. So I think, like, subconsciously, I learned to do the opposite. Like, I get very quiet and very still. And I was very implosive, not explosive. I'm not, say, the sort of person that would shout at a waiter at a restaurant. I'm the waiter. That will get shouted at, and then go home and make voodoo dolls out of the person that shouted at. That's the long-term planning I'm bringing to the table. At this point, I'd like to address the guitar I have over here and the person that's just been sitting over there. His name is Joe. He has a name. I've done well enough for myself that I now have a white slave. No. I want to stop. No, I had that thought just now. I was like, no, Joe is my closest friend. I love him so much. What are you doing? And so I wanted to do some songs in this show, and I'm very new to sort of like music and like writing songs in general. And when you're new to like a creative thing, generally you imitate the work that you like before you're able to do your own thing. So this first song is, you guys know this Jimi Hendrix song, Foxy Lady? I took that and I made it Ugly Baby. I call it Ugly Baby because my earliest memories of like the first thing that pissed me off, my family telling me stories about what an ugly baby I was. And the reason for that is that I was born in Sri Lanka, and I was born and have clearly remained particularly dark. And it's a weird one because you think Sri Lanka is an okay place to be born with dark skin, but listen, if it's nice to be white in Europe, it is fucking amazing to be white in South Asia. It's still like the good old days, really. You could be the most mediocre, Ed Sheeran looking guy and go to Sri Lanka or anywhere in South Asia and be treated like Timothy Chalamet in Dune. You know, people just think you're a prophet for smiling at a waiter. I remember my grandmothers used to feed me carrot juice, hoping it would make my skin lighter. I don't know what the logic was. Like they were hoping I'd go full circle and turn ginger or something. And it's a very strange feeling, like being a darker skinned person from South Asia, that I feel more comfortable about my skin color since I left home and live in Europe than I do when I visit back home. And it's important that I say here that white people in the room, please do not take that as a compliment. It is not that you are any less racist. It is just that your racism is less sophisticated. It's fine, you haven't had as much practice, it's okay. Because back home, it's a thing here, but it's very much more a thing back home where you don't even have to be white to be treated nicer. You get treated nicer on a gradient of how close to white you are. The technical term is colorism, but you can think of it as racism, but non-binary. You know, it's very progressive, if anything. Racism on the spectrum, if you will. Racism on the Spectrum was also going to be the name of a Netflix dating show. But they decided to call it Indian matchmaking instead. With that, we're going to start the first song. It's called Ugly Baby.
Your little face made me so mad. Think it's cause it reminds me of my dad in not a good way. Oh, I just had to go and rock. Good Lord, ugly baby. Okay, that's the first song.
Please give Joel a big round of applause. I'm getting to around the age now where a lot of the friends I have, a lot of the friends I grew up with have sort of settled down and had kids and gotten married and all of this. And not even around my age, like much younger than me, like people in their early 20s even. And whenever I hear about someone settling down that young, especially, I have the same feeling as when I hear people listening to ABBA. In that, it is not that I'm against it, but I do feel like we've moved on as a culture, you know? Like, and I mean, I do understand, I have a very cynical view on why someone might want to settle down that young at all. You know, I think as a person, just to, get through life, get through the day, you need a sense of meaning in your life. Just, wake up in the morning, decide not to kill yourself that day, and, do that on repeat forever. If you happen to, get to a certain age and you don't have that sense of meaning, you just don't have a lot going on, and you happen to be with someone who also doesn't have a lot going on, y'all two can reproduce and suddenly both of you got a lot going on. Right? It's very instant meaning in both your lives, and that, I know also that's very privileged of me to say, in the sense of I started doing this as soon as I left home, and this gave me a very strong, immediate sense of meaning. And I feel very lucky to have even started this, and especially now to almost be making a career out of it, because I had this preconception that the only people that are able to do creative, artistic things for a living are just children of rich people. And after doing this for a while and having a little bit of success on my own, I found that for once my teenage self was almost completely correct. I've never been around so many spoiled brats in my life. And now rich kids like to dress poor, so you can't even tell them apart. They just walk among us like vampires. I was doing this comedy festival thing a few years ago and just talking to another performer, getting to know each other. And I asked him at some point, like, oh, what do your parents do? And he replied, my parents don't work. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. And this man looked me dead in my eye and said, no, not in a sad way. And I was confused. I'd never known any happy unemployed people before. So I asked him, like, what do you mean not in a sad way? And he said that my parents don't work because my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather invented buttons? And I was like, surely not. Surely not all the buttons. And he was like, yeah, all the buttons. And now I have to live with the fact that everything I wear funds this man's career. It's very upsetting. I'm considering investing in an all-cape wardrobe. It's just a boycott. I think a part of the reason why people settling down so young, like, triggers me in particular, is that it reminds me of my parents. You know, my parents got together very young, got married really young, had me really young. And I think everyone's parents sort of set the template for what love and relationships looks like in their life. And my parents set a great example of what not to do. I don't want to talk too much shit about them. I'm going to keep this brief, because I do talk a lot of shit about them and they don't like it. I care even less that they don't like it, though. And at some point, like last year, my dad gave me an ultimatum. He was like, it's me or comedy. And it was very cute that he thought that was a hard decision for me. So we don't talk no more. We had like one last big sort of blowout moment. And in an attempt to defend himself, he said, my favorite line he has ever delivered, a true professional. He said, I wouldn't have done all that stuff if I knew you was going to tell everyone. And that was as a performer, I respect the commitment to the bit, you know? Because that is a serial killer level of confidence. Where you're just like on trial for murder and the judge asks you, like, are you guilty? Like, I'm guilty, I got caught, I guess. In that same conversation, at some point when he calmed down, he got very sort of quiet and somber. And he looked at me and he said, you know, I hope that you have a wife and children one day so you can know how painful it is. I was like, that is not how I was expecting that sentence to end, really. It's strange because that's one of the things that I don't entirely disagree even, in that painful, not the right word, definitely, but, you know, like difficult or ambitious, like these are words that I think accurately describe that situation. If you're trying to meet someone that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and then you two make a new little asshole, and you got to keep that piece of shit happy in perpetuity. No, because if you're too nice to the kid, they end up spoiled. If you're too mean to them, they talk shit about you in public. It's a very high-stakes game. And what scares me the most about it is that just about anyone can do it, like most of the time by accident. And the people that can't do it, or like those people that want kids that can't have kids, they have to prove, like when they go through the adoptive process, how good parents they'll be. They have to like show all this evidence that they're going to treat this kid nice. And I feel like if it's ever possible in the future, they should make biological parents do that same shit. You know, like usually before people have kids, they get married, and before you get married, you like, depending on the country, you register or get a marriage license or something like this. I feel like they should make that like a driver's license, like an actual test. You know, like you take a written exam, you need to bring receipts from a therapist you've seen for a few weeks, maybe some letters of recommendation from your exes to certify that you're not a psychopath. I wrote this other song from my mother's perspective. What she might have been thinking when she decided to settle down with my dad all that time ago.
I'm sitting wondering how did we end up like this? But when I met your daddy, I was just 16 years old. All I really noticed was that he was kind of tall. That's how we ended up traveling home. His French kiss come straight to drum. Didn't know what I was getting into, whether I loved him or just hated my mom. Moved in, got married, had kids too. By the time I woke up, I was far gone. I ain't saying kids burst my bubble. Our marriage was already a pile of trouble. Should've gotten out of there on the run. That French kiss coming up the drum. Could've been an astronaut, could've been a queen. I was supposed to know that boy would probably be so mean. I ain't saying it was all so obscene. This time it only went to me. Okay, take yourself off.
It's all quite loud and buzzy, so I don't know if you can even understand the words, most of you. But when I wanted to write songs for this show, I wanted them to be mostly funny, and they came out mostly sad, and I'm aware of that. No, I think because in my specific situation, that I thought the idea of anything like a happy family was somewhat of a fictional creation, like a Santa Claus or home ownership, this sort of thing. But you know, you get older, you make new friends, and you know, a lot of my close friends talk about how their home lives were very happy. You know, Joe is a very good example. When me and Joe met, we became close, and he talks about his parents, how they're in their 70s, and you know, they're still very much in love. They still flirt with each other even. It's sweet, and I met them many times, and they are the sweetest people I met in my entire life. His mom does flirt with me every time we see each other. And his dad is like right there too. You know, I don't know if that's their thing. That's how they keep the spark alive. But I have nothing but respect for Steph and Steve. And you know, I think my parents were somewhat aware of what a rough job they did, so they actively discouraged me or my siblings from ever settling down or anything like that. Like I remember I had a girlfriend towards the end of high school somehow, and my dad would say stuff like, "No, you shouldn't. You know, don't get too tied down. You should just, you know, play the field, enjoy your life." And it's always creepy when an older man gives you advice like that. And also, I hated this guy and wanted to do the opposite of whatever he said. So I was thinking, I'm gonna marry this girl. And thankfully for both of us, we didn't. What we did do is this very intelligent thing that teenagers often do when they're leaving to two separate places to study, where they try to make a long-distance relationship work as children. And we gave it a good go. It became an open relationship towards the end. It is always towards the end, ain't it? I found out a month after she decided. It was... I feel like that's not information you can share retrospectively, but listen, I had no self-esteem at the time, so I just rolled with it. It was open relationships are still very interesting to me because it's a case of like, I think every couple that uses that sort of configuration for their partnership makes very specific rules on how it works between the two of them. Like our rules were that you could do stuff with random people, but no one that's in your life on a regular basis. So like no friends, no... I was going to say family, but I feel like that goes without saying. You know, I'm Sri Lankan, not Pakistani. And promise that that is the only joke in the whole show where when I know I'm going into, I'm like, should I say this shit? But it keeps things interesting. That's fine. Please don't shoot me. So that was our arrangement at the time, and I remember that in her close group of friends there was a guy, and they were very close friends. But I also suspected that they were romantic with each other, which would have been cheating by the rules we set for each other. And jealousy is a very strange emotion because it's one of the few completely lose-lose situations you can find yourself in life. Because if you are wrong, all you're doing is alienating this person that you care about. And if you're right, you're right. Like now, like the worst thing is true. Congratulations. You're just a shitty detective. You're not solving mysteries. You're just finding dead bodies. I remember I confronted her about it, and she admitted that like I was right at the time, and that whole thing blew up. We broke up, all that. And I remember after that first big sort of bad thing, I was very insecure in every single relationship after that for a while. And you could say that after that, my relationship with relationships was similar to my relationship with food, in that I have an eating disorder. And that's true. I do have an eating disorder. It's under control. I remember when I found out that I had an eating disorder. So before I worked as a software engineer, I went to medical school because I'm very serious about this immigrant shit. And that sounds like a hacky joke, but I swear to God, I went to medical school. I went to all 5 years. In your first 2 years, it's like a normal university. You study and take tests and all that. And in your third year, they start putting you into hospital. You do like half the year normal university, and then the second half, they put you into hospital, and you do rotations of different medical specialities. So you do like a geriatrics rotation, a surgery rotation, an obstetrics and gynecology rotation, and psychiatry rotation most of the time. And in the psychiatry rotation, we got this book. In the UK, it's the ICD-10. In Germany, it's probably something different. But it's a book that psychiatrists use to categorize various mental illnesses. And I remember reading it, to study for the test at the end of that rotation. And I tell you, I had never felt so seen in my entire life. I was reading like, that's me, that's like depression, that's me, anxiety, that's me, eating disorder, that's me. It made me look back at my whole childhood like I was going around like Thanos collecting mental illness infinity stones. And a lot of that stuff has now slowly I've been working on myself, like it's all under control. The only thing that hasn't really gone away is the eating disorder thing. And it's a weird one, because I think a lot of people in my life didn't even know that it was a thing, because I hid it by being like very obsessed with like nutrition and fitness and like fitness lifestyle nonsense. Like I was a personal trainer at some point. It was gross. It was because it's strange. You'd think that people that do that sort of thing, they're taking care of their body, it's a positive thing in their lives. And I'm sure that's true for some people, but most of the people that do it more intensely, a lot of that like fitness lifestyle behavior is just eating disorder behavior while wearing Lululemon. And I feel like guys in particular, like if you just like, you can do this like after the show tonight or tomorrow during your day, just walk past like one of those gyms that have the glass doors and just look into the eyes of any man in that room, and you'll see that they are all just running away from some mean shit someone said to them one time. The vibe is much less like live, laugh, love, and more like, I'll show you. That's the energy that's being brought. I have a theory that the better physical condition a man is in, the worse psychological condition that man is in. To the extent to like, whenever I see like now, if I'm just out and I see a really like in shape guy in a very tight shirt, all I want to do is just take him aside and be like, bro, who hurt you? Like what? Here man, eat this cookie, it's gonna be okay. You are enough. I remember like that. So that first breakup happened. Like my self-esteem was really low, and it's slowly gotten better over time. There were a lot of things that helped that. Most of all was like I moved. That was in Malaysia. I moved here as soon as I got a job, and I started doing stand-up, and that helped a lot. And I'm not sure if living in Berlin helped me grow as a person. But it did help me forget about my problems temporarily. You know what I mean? Mostly because most of the time I lived in Berlin, I believe the technical term is a druggy whore. I integrated, you could say. And I'm sorry to put that so bluntly. I really am. I feel like usually when people try to get a point like that across, they'll say something like, "Oh, I used to be a completely different person." Like, we know what you're saying. It's okay. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, it was fun. But I remember the first person I started dating when I moved here was like, you could say a very typical Berlin sort of person, in that they were, like from a small town in Germany, moved to Berlin, were in arts university, pink hair, dressed in all black. Septum piercing because it came with the package, I guess. She was polyamorous because it also came with the package. I really love Berlin for that it's so many people trying to be unique at the same time. That you fucked up and made a new stereotype. And I wouldn't have you any other way. Please never change. And that sort of poly relationship, I sort of knew the rules getting into, so that was like quite nice. We saw each other for a few months, but I have very close friends here still that are in very long-term polyamorous relationships. I have one friend that has a kid with his partner, and they're polyamorous. And I was just curious about how that works, like logistically. So I asked him, explain how it works, and he, explained to me that like, yeah, so me and my partner are each other's primary partners, and we have our kid together. And we both have secondary partners and tertiary partners. Wow. And a rota for which of us goes on dates, which nights of the week, and which one of us stays home and takes care of the kid. And I was just thinking, this sounds like a lot of admin, really. In this situation, I'm just trying to fuck around, not start a small business, you know what I mean? And I tried to express this to him. Like, this sounds like a lot of work that you're putting into this. Is it really worth it for you? And he explained that, at least for him, that as a person, you have a lot of needs. And it's too much to expect one other person to fill all of those needs for you. So you find multiple people to fill those needs individually. Which I get, I understand, but I would argue that surely it might not be easier, but surely it's simpler to try and fill a few of those needs yourself first, Before you start doing this fucking Ocean's 11 assemble the dream team shit. There's just a montage of you going around town, waiting outside a jail for like a cool white guy. You find a black guy with a special skill. Like he knows explosives, but also he's a florist. Most importantly, to complete the squad, small acrobatic Asian man. We need him. The team is not complete without him. I know I'm making fun of that situation, but at least, he takes it very seriously. Whereas I know a lot of people that sort of describe themselves as being polyamorous. And listen, you're all just fucking around, which is fine, but call it what it is. In the sense of, I think it makes people feel better to intellectualize their behavior because it makes it feel more legit. It's okay to just be a hoe every now and then. That's cool. You don't need to intellectualize everything. Like, just because you get BoJack Horseman doesn't mean you're an existentialist. It means you have depression and you should see a professional. It was really genuinely like the most fun years of my life. I remember that first person I was seeing, that she was at the time a year younger than me, but much more experienced than I was, you could say. She was sort of the sexual Gandalf to my Frodo, if you will. She introduced me to a lot of stuff. She ambushed me into my first threesome. That was a big day for little old me. I remember I just moved here. I was like 2 months into living here, a month into doing comedy, and I was on the way home from a gig. It was like 10:37 p.m. on a Thursday. This is a very clear memory in my mind. Have you guys watched Inside Out? Yeah, this is a core memory. This is. And I got a text from her saying like, "Hey, XX," and then a minute later, another text saying like, "Me and my friend are just at this bar. Come join us if you're free." And I was like, "Okay, cool. That sounds like a nice, wholesome evening." And just went over there, little baby bird of a man, and everything was, everything was normal. At some point, her friend went to the bar to get us all another round, and the person I was seeing, she leant over to me and whispered, "Hey, do you want to ask her to come home with us?" And I looked at her and mumbled, "I think I love you." And and she was like, "No, I'm serious." I was like, "Yeah, be my wife." And then at some point, her friend came back, and she whispered something to her friend, and they started making out in front of me. And I had a panic attack. I like regressed into my mind and spoke to the 12-year-old version of myself that lives in there like, fucking, listen, man, I know it's not looking too good for us right now. But just keep doing what you're doing. Because trust me, we gon' make it. And at some point I came to, and we ended up going back to one of ours, and I was so stressed out. I was so stressed out and nervous that I was having trouble getting the engine running, if you get my meaning. And then I had to have another talk with myself, like, fucking listen, man, this is what we train for, all right? This is our 8 mile, this is mom's spaghetti right now, don't fuck this up. And eventually everything started working. And what followed was one of the most stressful hours of my life. It's not that it wasn't enjoyable. How do I put that? In that situation, you're in like a heterosexual sex situation, as the guy, you're usually doing a lot of the stuff. And when there's two people, there's twice as much stuff to do. Like, I felt like a waiter at a busy restaurant. Like my hands were full, my mouth was full. It was a big day. It was a good time here. It was. Stuff like that is fun, but it doesn't exactly help you grow as a person necessarily. I remember, like, even despite all that bullshit, I still sort of remained the same insecure little piece of shit. It kept messing up relationship after relationship until I had a breakup that was bad enough that it sort of snapped me out of it. I will now give you details on said breakup. To set the scene, the person involved, we will call her Florist Number 2. It's important to say in this one, I was extra annoying and needy and all this bullshit because it's stressed me out a lot that Florist Number 2 had used to work with my ex immediately before, Florist Number 1. And before I proceed, I feel the need to clarify that I do not have a florist fetish of any kind. It's not like I can't come unless I smell pollen or something. It was just a terrible coincidence. Ironically, and this is true, I met both of them on Bumble. So me and Florist Number 2 saw each other for a total of about 5 months, And at about 3 months into seeing each other, we planned a trip for 5 months. And by the time the trip came around, she was already sick of my shit. But the Airbnb was non-refundable. So we went ahead, and the trip was to be 7 days in Naples. I came home on day 2. You ever had to take Ryanair home from a breakup? It's doubly hurtful, you know, because first you're rejected personally, and then you're reminded of where you're at, like, economically. It's too much reality for one day, you know, and that wasn't even the worst part of the whole trip. That was the afternoon of day 2. On the evening of day 1, we got scammed, and I got mugged by a group of 5 Italians in tracksuits. In hindsight, I mean, universal sign of danger, first of all. I should have known, really, like in hindsight, thinking about it, that especially Southern Italians, because they're extra dangerous. Because Southern Italians are white people that for some reason do not think that they're white. So they don't have the guilt to hold them back. You know, they're full power. So the situation was we ended up going to like some like scammy tourist trap bar, got charged 100 euros for 2 Aperol Spritz. I didn't want to pay that, so we decided to leave. I put 20 on the table and we left. I tried to escape the scam, and the scammers were very upset that we escaped their scam, so they found us and they roughed me up a little bit. And the memory of it, like in the moment, it was really scary, but the memory is weirdly funny because I was like surrounded by these like 5 little Italians in tracksuits, little Marios, Luigis, you know, and they were, you know, pushing me around, roughing me up a little bit, and shouting stuff at me in Italian, a lot of which I assume was racially motivated, because, you know, that's their culture and you have to respect that. You know, that's Italian culture. Italians, they love their mothers and they hate brown people and women that are not their mothers. I remember one of them, they were shouting stuff at me, and one of them realized that I couldn't understand what they were saying to me. So he started doing like sign language racism at me. And then everyone joined along. It was very sweet. It was very like... And there was a lot of, you know, beginner level stuff, lots of like knife stuff. One guy pulled out a full noose routine, he did a fucking bah! And I must say, it was terrifying. But also, I appreciated that they were trying to make it accessible to me. We're professionals at every level, really. So I wrote this other song about the most demeaning part of that entire experience, which was having to fly Ryanair on the way home.
Drinking 3, flying Ryanair, it's gonna be the death of me. Can't feel my legs in this sea. Why won't EasyJet just let me sleep? I paid my dues, I've done my time, so can't afford British Airlines. I work my job so patiently. Why can't I fly with some dignity?
I am seeking a Ryanair sponsorship if anyone works for them. So all that happened, I sort of told myself like this situation wasn't entirely my fault, but whatever I'm doing is putting myself in these dumbass situations. So I need to at least try and fix my shit at this point. And so I like looked into it, and the first place most people go when they're trying to fix themselves is they find a therapist. I've seen a therapist at various points in the past. I've always stopped going because I've run out of money. And I feel like a big part of the reason most people go see a therapist is to, reduce the stress in their life in some way. And, things get better and better every year. But still, to this day, most of my stresses do remain financial. And the therapist tends to make those worse immediately. I remember I tried to find the cheapest therapist I could find. And this was in London, and I found one for like 35 to 40 per session. And the problem with going to the cheapest therapist you can find is like, you feel like you're at the cheapest therapist. There's incense burning for some reason. They ask you what your star sign is. They're not supposed to do that. That's not in the book. I've read the book. It's not in the book. It's definitely not in the book. Yeah. Astrology people are very fun to me, because it's what most of the ones I meet are usually ex-Christians or Catholics who have replaced God and church with the planets and a dodgy website from the 2000s, which is arguably more reliable. The one advantage that astrology does have with most other religions is that no wars have been fought over astrology quite yet. Although, I would love to see that. Just an army full of men that say shit like, I'm a Pisces, and that's why I don't wear condoms, because I gotta swim free, bro. It's not me, it's the stars. I decided to go like one price bracket up in therapists. I found one for about 60 per session. And even like that person seemed like a more legitimate practitioner, you could say. But even then, there'd always, like, say we spoke for like 20 minutes and I made some progress, there'd always be a voice in my head that was like, yeah, but was that 20 euros worth of progress? It never is. Not once I could have ordered Domino's and felt tangibly better immediately. And I remember seeing a therapist, I ran out of money again, and I asked the last therapist I saw for a reading list so I could try and, help myself. And she gave me a reading list of self-help books, and I found them genuinely extremely helpful. And, I talk about a lot of different things in the show. There is never a deeper silence than until I mention self-help books for some reason. Like, you would think that I just said, and I started doing heroin. And I think that's because at least half of you are reading self-help books, and you don't want the person next to you to know. And I understand that. I hide my self-help books. Self-help books are like heroin in that if you have them in your house, they're the sort of things you hide from even your closest friends. Because if they see it, they'll look at you like, hey, are you okay? Like, is there something you need to talk to me about? And I found them, a lot of them, very helpful. I think a lot of their problem is very simple in that self-help books have terrible titles, like the worst titles. I remember I bought one last year called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And I swear, the act of purchasing that book lowered my self-esteem. I was like, I'm one of these people now that buys books like this. I read one recently called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Yes, there's one more damaged. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And you can't do that. You can't just name something after its target demographic. I don't call my shows a bunch of immigrants and a few artsy white girls. Like, that's not okay. That's offensive, is what it is. I like that one in particular because the joke works all right and all, but then you start looking at each other, and it's real cute. No, and to be fair, there is a decent amount of bullshit in all of them. You know, a lot of them will say a lot of dumb stuff, like a lot of them will tell you to be yourself, and myself included. If you are in the demographic of people that are seeking help from self-help books, yourself is the last person you should be. And almost anyone else, barring Michael Jackson and R. Kelly. One of them asked me to write a letter to my younger self. And listen, I want no correspondence with that psychopath. I don't know what he's going to send back. It's going to be a baby's head with shit on it or something. It's terrifying. I'm scared of that kid. The other category, like, is sometimes they'll say things that I know are right, but I don't like that they're right about it. I say a lot of them will say that cynicism is a blanketly negative personality trait. You know, that it makes you mistrusting, and it means that you're driven by fear and all this stuff. It's very annoying because I know they're right about it, and it made me realize a lot about my general behavior. Like you know, cynicism is just fear trying to act smart, and anger is just fear trying to act tough, and insecurity is just fear being itself. And it's very hard to let go of fear because it's done so well for me. And then, like, I do a lot of it. Like, I left home because I was afraid of being stuck there. I continue working hard because I'm afraid of being sent back. But at a certain point, it stops serving you in that, like, ain't nobody trying to send me back anymore except for fucking Rishi Sunak. But before him, I had my whole situation. So I got I'm 2 years away from a permanent resident. I got one more year. We don't need to get into my immigration plan, but you know, there's a plan. So I decided, okay, let me try to be a less sort of cynical, fearful person. I sort of applied that in various parts of my life. Annoyingly, it helped a bunch. You know, I found myself being happier generally in my life and my work. And I thought, like, the next romantic thing I end up in, let me try to apply it there as well. So yeah, the next person I started seeing it sort of progress through all the normal stages. You know, we were seeing each other, and then we were exclusive, and then we were boyfriend, girlfriend. And it's always interesting to me that in a romantic context, those are things that need to be negotiated specifically. You don't do that in your other types of relationships. You don't do that in your friendships. Kids don't do that with their parents. No kid gets to 5 years old and looks at their parents like, yeah, these toys are nice, but what are we really doing here? You know? And it was going well, and more than like how much I enjoyed the relationship, I was happy with how I was acting within it, if that makes sense, in that I wasn't doing a lot of the insecure bullshit I used to do, which was nice. And there were specific moments where I sort of caught myself. I was like, oh, you acted better here than you would have a few years ago, and that's cool, you know? There was one time in particular, I remember I finished the show, I was on the way home, and I got a message from a girlfriend at the time. It was like 10:30, 11 at night, saying like, hey, and then nothing for like an hour, and then another hour, and then almost another hour, and like close to 2 a.m. she sent a second message saying like, oh hey, I was gonna ask if you wanted to hang out, but actually I'm tired, I'm gonna go home. And I was like, okay, cool, get home safe. There was a part of me that wanted to freak out, but I sort of learned how to talk myself down. I was happy that I just told myself, like, come on man, what do you think? What do you think? What are you freaking out about? What do you think happened? That your girlfriend went and fucked some other guy and then messaged you to say goodnight afterwards? That would be crazy. So that was Thursday. We saw each other again on Saturday. We were just talking, and she somehow like shoehorned in a piece of information about a 2-year situationship she'd had, which is amazing because I've kept visas for less time. It apparently lasted into 3 weeks of us seeing each other, which technically we weren't exclusive at that point. No trust had been broken, but still in my head I was like, fucking be cool, man, be cool. Like, if you could log the most frequent thoughts of my adult life, be cool, man, be cool, would be number one. Immediately followed by, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. So I got that little piece of information, and then she said, "Oh, I need to tell you something about this past Thursday." And we're all adults here. You can surmise what information I received. I also did some very unsubtle foreshadowing about a minute ago. So I found out I got cheated on again. I got so upset. And I got so angry. I told you, like, when I get angry, I get very quiet and very still, because the opposite used to scare the shit out of me. But apparently, my quiet thing is even scarier. And that night ended with her getting so scared that she broke up with me. And that was very irritating, because usually when you don't get fucked over in that way, the only solace that you have is that you get to end things with that person. And I fucked that shit up for myself. I was so annoyed. I was wondering, like, why I got so angry even. I think, like, more than the relationship itself, I was annoyed that the only time I should have been suspicious, I was trusting. And, you know, I should have been, like, the only time I should have been cynical, I wasn't cynical. Because I think cynicism is something that develops in a person. You know, like, life fucks with everyone. But if it fucks with you enough and in the right ways, a person will develop cynicism as a way of, when the shit goes down, at least at the end of it, you can be like, yeah, but I knew it. But I knew it. I'm sad, but I'm smart. And that makes it a little bit better. Because, you know, the only thing worse than being jealous and being right is being trusting and being wrong, because then you're sad and you're dumb. And that is embarrassing. It's a weird one, because, like, there's times I've been, like, where I've had the thought of, like, I wish I would be cheated on right now. That's a weird thing to say. I will explain. It was one of these situations where, like, I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in anymore, but the person I was with hadn't really, like, done anything wrong. I just didn't want to be with them anymore. And you're supposed to be honest, especially in relationships, but sometimes there's only so honest you can be without also being a sociopath. And that, like, if someone asks you something like, "Oh, why do you want to leave? What did I do?" You can't say some shit like, "No, it's nothing you did. It's just who you are as a person." You can't say that shit to people. I remember this specific situation. I had to break up with this person 3 separate times. The first time, she just said no. I didn't know that was an option. I was like, "Oh, that nice. Well, I'm gonna save that for next time." She was French, of course she was. And she would justify sort of being like that level of argumentative by being French. Like, I'm French, we're fired now. And you can't live your life like that. You can't justify your worst personality traits by your nationality. I have friends that owe me money. They don't get to say shit like, "I'm not in debt, bro, I'm just Greek." Like, that's not how life works. I remember after that breakup, my self-esteem was pretty low, but I could it bounced back pretty quickly, and I could tell that it had when I started having like very petty thoughts afterwards. I will now give you an example of one of them. Out of everything I shared, this feels the ickiest to share with you, because it shows the extent of my ego, if that makes sense. Where I was deleting pictures of us on my phone. I saw a picture of the two of us, and I had the thought of, like, she cheated on me? And you can understand the subtext behind that thought, I'm sure. Listen, I don't think I'm being entirely unfair, because there's a level of person that if I'm dating them, they can do whatever the fuck they want, really. Like, if I'm dating Zendaya and I come home and she's just sucking some other guy's dick, I will go make her a tea. I will put some honey in it for her throat, because I know where I stand. I think it was really nice. You know, around that time, stand-up started going much better. And stand-up is a particularly nice thing to have, because whatever I've described in the last hour or so, every single person in this room has something similar, very likely worse, happen to them probably recently, but but I'm the only one that because of stand-up. Like 2 weeks after some bad shit happens in my life, I could have the genuine thought of like, if I play this right, this shit might buy me a house, and that's a very comforting feeling to have. In the past year, like the biggest changes have been like stand-up has started going really well, and even more so, I got a cat. And that's been lovely. I've never loved something so much that clearly doesn't give a single fuck about my existence. I swear, this kid doesn't care about me at all. I never thought I would get a cat. I never thought of myself as a cat person, really. But you know, we always had dogs in the house growing up, and you know, I thought I was a dog person, but I realized as I got older that I'm very specifically a big dog person. I like big dogs. I like big dog energy. They're very slow and lumbering and peaceful. I'm just not quite making big dog money just yet, you know. I got cat money, and I got small. At a stretch, I got small dog money. I just don't like small dogs. I just really don't like, especially with all the work I've been doing on myself. Every time I see a small dog, my first thought is like, you're codependent. And think about every small dog you met in your life. They're always coming up to you and be like, hey, tell me I'm a good boy, love me, tell me I'm a good boy. I'm like, no, you ought to be a good boy for you, not for me. We're reaching the end of the show. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm gonna end on a song. The first song I did, "Ugly Baby." I didn't really finish it the first time, so I'm gonna finish the song. I'm gonna do a big, ugly, self-indulgent guitar solo, and I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you all so much for coming.
Slide, ugly. I know when you wasn't mine.
Guess I'll save them all.